screen we're looking at right now is the main dashboard. This is the home page of CheckFlow. You can see here we've got this grid, and each of these rows is a checklist. So we have the grid displays the checklist name, the details of when it was started or completed, the status, who's assigned to it, and high level sort of display of how many tasks are completed. You can click this little plus icon here to expand the checklist, and you can then view the individual tasks within each within the checklist itself. You can see here that 7 of the 10 tasks have been completed, and you can see here these have all been completed by this user on this specific date. Now, if you don't have any required fields within each of these tasks, you can actually go ahead and start to tick tasks off from the dashboard itself, which is quite useful if you've got a simple process. It saves you from having to click on the checklist to actually open it and view it, which I'll do now actually. Let's go into the ASOS onboarding checklist. Now, this is a checklist. You can see the area on the left here is our tasks, and the area on the right is the content for each of these tasks. If I click between these, you can see the content changes. Each task can have its own set of controls. So controls can be input controls, or they can be controls that display information to the user, like a text control here. Now, the concept within CheckFlow is that is key to sort of grasp at the beginning, is the concept between a template and a checklist. So if I go back to the dashboard here, we have all of these checklists. Now, underneath the checklist name, you can see we've got a template here, employee onboarding. Now, that is the template that this checklist is based off of. So the idea within the system is that you have one or more templates for each of your processes. That will kind of be your blueprint for your process. And then from that single template, you can create multiple checklists. So you can see here, I've got employee onboarding template, and I've got John Smith, who's being onboarded. And then down here, I've got James Robinson, and they're using the same employee onboarding template. They are actually using different versions of the template, which I can go over later, but they're the same template. And in the same sort of sense, ASOS onboarding is using the client onboarding template, and Microsoft, Tesla are also using the client onboarding template. So the idea is you create your blueprint in your template of how your process works. So let's go ahead and do that now. So I'll click create new template. You can do that here, or you can also go up to this we call this the quick create button. You can click the green quick create button, and you can create new checklists from here, or templates. So we are now in the template designer form. You can see this looks quite similar to the checklist that we just opened. So on the left hand side, this is where we build up we define the name of our template, a description, and we can add tasks. This larger section here is where we can add our controls, so we can drag and drop controls onto here. This little section on the right is our widgets toolbar, so this is where we can add any of the controls onto the content area. So let's start, and let's just create something really simple at the moment. Let's just call this a demo template. We'll give it a name. Let's leave the description blank for now, and then we can start to build up some tasks. So one task is kind of added for you without any text in there at the beginning. So you can just click on that and start typing in. And when you hit the return button or enter key, it creates another task for you. So it kind of feels a bit like a Word, very much like a word process. It's very simple to sort of use. But as well as that, you can use this little toolbar down the bottom here to add tasks as well. So it will add it underneath the task you're currently selected. So if I select task 1, I click add task, it'll add it between task 1 and 2. So I could call that task 1.5, and I could call this task 2.5 just to illustrate. And then once you've got your task defined, there's nothing stopping you from changing the order. You can drag and drop these around to sort of mess with the order and stuff. We also have the option of adding headings. Now, headings are similar to tasks, but they will not have checkboxes, so you don't complete a heading. So you could still add content. You could still click through them in the checklist, and you can still add content to them, but the main difference is they will be displayed in bold, and they won't have a checkbox. So the idea around headings is kind of to group data and make your list of tasks quite readable, or more readable, I should say. This is quite useful for quite long processes where maybe you've got 100 tasks. You might want to break some down by maybe by department, or by say you've got an employee onboarding process. You might have a set of tasks that are to be done before the employee starts, and then a set of tasks that are to be done on their first day, and then a set of tasks that will be done, you know, maybe after 7 days. So you could sort of use that to break your tasks into logical sections. We also have ways you can, instead as well as dragging these up and down, you can move them up with these buttons here, and you can actually duplicate tasks and delete tasks here. So duplicate tasks is actually quite a good one, because it'll duplicate the task and all of the content within it. So if you've got quite similar tasks, you can save a bit of time doing that sort of stuff. So now we've got our list of tasks built, we can now start to drag some controls over. Now in the widgets toolbar here, we've got these two sections, content and input. Now the content controls are designed, these controls are more around displaying information to the user, whereas input controls are more around sort of capturing information from the user. So for this introduction heading I've got selected, I'll add a text control. This is a very common control, and I can this is kind of like a WYSIWYG sort of Microsoft Word, what you see is what you get kind of textual display. So I could say this is an intro to my process, and you can do things like bold here, highlight, I can make some of it underline, say, and then you can add bullet points here, you can add tables in, horizontal rows, you can add links and pictures and videos. You can actually go into the code view and actually put your own, if you wanted to put your own HTML, put your own sort of HTML in there. So there's lots you can do here. We do have pre-built styles as well. So there's lots of stuff you can do with the text control, and that is a very common control. As you can imagine, most processes will be displaying some form of info, and a lot of it is text. So as well as uploading pictures and videos, here we do have individual controls for those. So we have an image and video control, and you can upload your own images and videos to our cloud storage. So that's they're quite useful controls. We have a file control. Now file control allows you to attach a file to the process itself. So whatever you load, whatever you add here will, so let's add this Excel file. Whatever you attach here will become an attachment to every checklist based off of this template. So it will be displayed within the checklist, and the user can click on it and then download it. So that's quite useful if you just want sort of an external file, like maybe to be referenced within your process. The reason I wanted to sort of talk about that in detail is because we actually have a file upload control, which I'll go over shortly, and I'll show you the difference between that. We have a mail to control, which allows you to sort of build predefined sort of emails, and it allows you to capture information from other areas. So what I'll do is I'll add that into the final task, and I'll show you how you can use that shortly. We have an embed control, so you can embed from other sources. So say you've got a Google Maps that you want to put into your process, or Google Sheets, or Airtable, or Trello board. You can embed all of those sorts of things from there. Link checklist allows you to sort of nest checklists together. That's quite an advanced topic. I'll probably if you wanted to learn a bit more about that, probably worth looking at the dedicated video on that topic. Separator is just a simple control just to separate, put lines between, and that's more for formatting. So moving on to the input controls, we've got short text and long text. So short text is designed to capture a single line of text. So this could be first name, let's say. And long text allows you to collect multiple lines of data, and you can actually sort of drag this around to control sort of the default size of the box. Now, with these input controls, you can see we've got these required checkboxes. If you tick this, this will say the parent task cannot be completed until a value has been entered into this field. It's just making it required. So that just ensures sort of data integrity. Email and website, these are very similar to short text, but they just have extra validation on them to ensure that in the case of email, an email address is put in, of that, like it follows the format of an email address. And for website, it's the same sort of thing, but it's just got logic on there to check that it's a valid sort of URL. So let's say this is customer email, and this one is customer website. Okay. So in this next task, I'll add some other ones. So I was talking about the file control before, how the file control up here that I added in the introduction here allows you to attach a file. Well, the file upload actually prompts the user to upload a file, so that's the main difference. And you can specify a min and a max number of files that they can upload. So that's quite useful when you maybe capture in, for example, in an employee onboarding process, you might want to gather some proof of identification from the employee before they start, and you might need to upload that to your process. So let's put proof of ID here. Okay, so the next one to show you is date. Date field it has different modes, so you can have the date picker select either the user select either a date only, a time only, or date and time. So let's put employee start date. Let's say I'm just a customer start date because I've made these customer, haven't I? Let's just make this a bit consistent. Not that it really matters, but okay, customer start date. So we've done the date field. So drop downs and multi-choice are quite similar. Let's drag them both on here. So you can see they look very similar here. So they're defined in the same way. So drop down and multi-choice will allow you to select from a list of items. The drop down will just have you just select one option, and multi-choice you will select one or more options you can select. So let's say select one, and then let's say select one or more. Okay, and then to build up your options, you can make this dynamic via parameters. You can parameterize these, but for now I keep it simple and I'll say option 1, option 2, option 3. It's very much like the tasks. You just type and hit return, and it adds a new option. And if you want to delete, you just delete into here, and it will delete them. Again, with all of these inputs, you can click required on these. Subtasks is also quite similar, so let's put subtasks here. And let's say so subtasks will display a list of tasks within your task itself. Each task will have a little tick box next to it. So let's say also complete these tasks, and then you can have task 1. It's very similar to the drop down and multi-choice you just saw. It's just type and hit return basically. And then finally table allows you to you can add and remove rows and columns here. So maybe if I just wanted 3 columns, I could click that little trash icon, but maybe if I wanted a 5th row, so 3 by 5. And then what you can do is any fields you fill in here within the template become read-only in your checklist, and any you leave empty here will become editable fields in your checklist. So that might not make sense like at the moment, but when you see it in the checklist, it should make more sense. So I'll put a heading row in here, and you can do things like I can say that's going to be red. And I can say specific cells are required, so you could do things like that. So let's just call that table example. You can leave these empty as well, these headings, but I usually just sort of fill them in. So now with the mail to control, going back to this one, the reason I didn't cover this right at the beginning was because we can use dynamic values to fill this in. So the idea behind it is to take data entered from other parts of your checklist and use them here. So if I do open curly brackets and I say, so all of the blue fields here are kind of global variables. So things like the name of the checklist, the current date, things like that, the current user's name, that sort of stuff. And then these sort of turquoise coloured ones are fields within your checklist itself. So we can reference the customer email control here, which is just here. So the value that's put into here will go into the to field. And then I could say welcome, and then I could do double open curly brackets and put customer first name here. And then I could say hello, customer first name, thank you for joining us. And I could say regards, and then I could put the current user's name in here, and that will then populate with the fields dynamically at runtime. So, and again, this might make a bit more sense when you actually see it in action. So we've got a really basic template now. We haven't covered sort of assignments, due dates, halt task, conditional logic, parameters, all of the more advanced topics. So don't worry, we'll cover those shortly. I'm going to save this template. That's now saved, and I'm going to go up to create, my quick create button. I'm going to click the new checklist button. I'm going to select our template, demo template, and I'm just going to say demo 1. So we're now creating a new checklist based off of our template. Like I said before, we have one template, and you can create an unlimited amount of checklists based off of that. So you can, first thing you can see on the left is we've got our heading, which doesn't have a checkbox. It's bolded, as you can see, and we've got our 6 tasks that follow. So you can click between these, as you can see. The introduction has sort of the text and the file here. The task 1 has our short text, long text, customer email, website. If I try and complete this, we did tick the required on customer first name, so we would have to enter a value in here. So I could put a value in here. As you edit your checklists, we actually log who made the modification and when it was modified, so that there's sort of full traceability throughout your checklists. So the other fields weren't required, so I could leave these blank. So the way to complete tasks is you can either complete them down here, or you can tick here, and you can uncomplete and complete these as well. You can tick on and off. So going on to this one, proof of ID, I can click upload file, and then I can choose a file, which you probably can't see because it's off camera at the moment, but I selected this little Excel file and I've uploaded that, and that's now uploaded to this part of the checklist. Now, this is probably a good time to talk about comments and attachments, because you can, this little section at the bottom, if you look at the bottom of all of these tasks, we have this comments and attachments section. So this is really good for sort of collaborating with other people within your team. So I can add a simple comment here, like the text control, you can add all sorts of formatting and stuff here. So I'll add a simple comment here. You can see it's stamped with the person who made the comment and the comment text. And you can see we've got a little sort of indication that there's a comment on this task. Now that's quite straightforward, but you can also add attachments. So as well as uploading files here, you can upload files to any task, regardless of whether they have the upload control. Now the upload control is quite useful if you want to require some form of upload, or you want a prompt for it. Whereas casual uploading is great to do within this sort of section here. So that's really cool to do. And then the final thing with comments and attachments, it's a really good way to sort of communicate with other users, because if you type the @ symbol, it will bring up a list of other users, and you can mention them, and then that will send a notification to them, and it will also assign the task to them too. So you could put demo user 4, can you action this task, let's say, and I can add that comment, and that will then send an email to that user. So now you can see that the task is also assigned to this user, demo user 4. That's just so that that user can actually access the task, because we do have some permissions on there which allow you to define, only people that are assigned can actually complete the task or view the checklist. So we also, when a user's been mentioned in a comment, they're also assigned to the task too. So comments and the comments are a really good way of sort of collaborating with team members, basically. Here is the date control, so you can click here, and we set this to date and time. So we've got both the date picker and next to it the time picker. So I could select a date here and maybe say 12 o'clock. You can change all of your formattings of your dates within your user settings, just over in here. And that does affect the date picker too. So if you don't want seconds on here, for example, and stuff like that. Drop down, you can see here we can only select one option. Multi-choice, you can select one or more. So I'm selecting 2 options there. Subtasks, you can see here, and our table control, you can see this was the one. These are the headings that I actually filled in the template. You can see these are read only now, and these I can actually type data in. This one I made a required field, so I had to put some information in there. And here you can see our mail-to control. So you can see that I've put the first name in, the customer first name, which I've put in as Gary, and you can see this has picked up the current user's name. But customer email I haven't actually filled in yet, so let's go back and put this in. Okay. Now if I go back onto here, this has now been put in, and now if I click create draft email, this will bring up my default email client, which is Gmail. It could be Outlook or something else. You can see this pre-builds your email for you. So this is really useful for maybe sort of just if you want to standardize the types of emails that are going out to customers or third parties. It just saves you a bit of time having to double type stuff, so that's quite useful. The other thing to mention, as well as sort of assigning via, how we we assign this task by mentioning the user. You can simply assign tasks up the top here. So I can click assign, and then I can select who I want to assign it to. So we do have the concept of groups and individual users, and you can assign to more than one person. And here, where we've got this checkbox, only assignees can complete this task, that will mean that if you're not demo user 2 or you're not a member of the human resources group, the task will not be visible. It will be visible in the list, but it'll be grayed out and you won't be able to select it. So you won't be able to actually complete the task unless you're one of those 2 users. If you untick this, it will still be assigned to them. They'll still receive notifications, but other users could then still action the task as well. So it depends on how you want to do it. And if you want to do bulk assignments, you can do that here as well. So when a task is assigned to more than one person, we have a slightly different logo, and you have to sort of hover over to see who it's assigned to. With due dates, you can set these to sort of fixed date and times here, and again it's the sort of date time picker control, and you can do that here. So you can see here that this is the due dates always come up just under the task, and they also appear here. What happens as well is when a task becomes overdue, we send emails out to anybody who's assigned to the task to notify them that the task has become overdue. So this is a really simple sort of overview of the checklists itself. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the dashboard now, and you can see our checklist in the dashboard, and I can expand this, and you can see all of our information here. You can see that there are some comments on this one. You can see that we completed this one. This one's overdue now. So there's all sorts of useful things there, but that is quite a basic template. What I'll do is I'll click here, and this will take me back into our template. And I will go over some more advanced topics now. So we covered assignments and due dates just a moment ago, but really what you want to do with assignments and due dates, if you can, is actually define them in your template, because what that will do is that will automate them for you going forward. So for most processes, you will probably find that your assignments can be defined, they're always the same, for example. So you might have a set of tasks that always need to be completed by a specific group, so and you might, or a specific user. So it really makes sense to define these in a template, and then what happens is the system, CheckFlow, will create those assignments for you immediately as soon as the checklist is created. And then those notifications that we send out will go out to those groups or users to notify them that they've been assigned to a task. So to do that, it's the same as in the checklist really. So you can come up here and you can pick your group or your user that you want to assign those to. And then the assignment's made here. So this assignment will be created for the next checklist that we create. And then let's just say this one is for demo user 3. So now that you have your assignments created, there is one other factor to consider. So that is, you might always need to assign a task, but you might not know who that assignment's going to be at until runtime. So the way to tackle that is with parameters. So I can go up here and click on settings and then click on parameters. I can add a new parameter, and maybe I can say, give it a name of, say, manager. That makes sense. And then I can say I want this to be a member or group parameter. I can give it a default value, but I'm just going to leave that blank for now. And then now that I have that parameter, if I click the assign button, we have this extra section here, because the system's detected that there's a member or group parameter that we can actually bind our assignment to. So I'm going to make this one bound to the manager field. So you'll see the difference there. There's no real visual clue this has been bound, unfortunately, but you can see that these two are fixed assignments, and this one is assigned to the manager. Let's change this task name to manager task, so we've got better visibility of that. So I'll show you how that works in a sec, but I just also want to cover due dates in the same bit. So due dates are really handy. There are numerous ways to sort of set your due dates up. So you can anchor your due dates to certain things. So the common ones are checklist start date. So I could say this task needs to be due 1 hour after the checklist start date. And then I can say this task is going to be due 1 hour after a specific task is completed. So say after task 1 is completed. So let's say task 3, 1 hour after task 1. Okay, and then this task can be due, let's say, you can do before logic as well, and with before logic you can only really anchor to specific controls. So you can anchor to specific date controls within your checklist for after and before, but before is the more sort of frequently used scenario. So if you imagine you've got an employee onboarding process and you've got a field saying employee start date, you might have some tasks that need to be done before that employee starts working at the company. So you could have, so this one's customer start date. So I could say this needs to be done, 7 days before the customer starts. So 7 days before customer start date. Okay, so we'll see those in so customer start dates here. We'll see this all now. So I'll save this version of the template. Now, this little pop-up that appears, because we've got an open checklist, i.e. demo 1, what I mean by open is a checklist that has not got all of its tasks completed is an open checklist. The system detects that and it asks you whether you want to apply these changes that you've made to that checklist as well. So you can click update or you can just not bother, that's fine. I won't bother for now because maybe we can go back in and have a look. I'll select our demo template. This time we've got the checklist name that we have to put in. I call this demo 2, but we've also got the manager parameter that we can define. So parameters are defined, you can set the parameter values here at runtime. So I can select my manager. So let's say this is going to be, let's just say it's going to be demo admin. Now you'll see some differences when we run this checklist. So you can see that we've got our 2 fixed assignments that we made. This one was assigned to multiple, i.e. demo user 2 and the human resources group. This one's assigned to an individual user, and this one is assigned to demo admin because it was bound to our manager parameter, and I selected the demo admin as the manager. So parameters are quite powerful and quite useful for just making assignments a bit more flexible. Okay, so now moving on to due dates, you can see this task here we made due 1 hour after the checklist had started. So as I complete these tasks, that due date goes away. Now this task is due 1 hour after task 1 is completed. So if I complete task 1, I think I have to put some, this is a required field, so I have to put something in there. This now comes up with a due date 1 hour later. And this task here is 7 days before the customer start date. So if I go to the customer start date here, and let's just say the time doesn't really, if you were doing customer start date, you probably wouldn't have the time field on here anyway, but it'd probably just be a date only control. But it doesn't really matter, it illustrates the point anyway. You can see here that this changes as you change this. These are always linked, so if I change this to the 23rd, you can see this updates to September the 16th now, and if I change it to the 24th, updates to this. So it's not just a one-time thing, it's they're linked. So that's demonstrating due dates and assignments. Let's go back to the dashboard. You can see our demo 2 here, and you can see that this is using version 2. So I'm going to open this checklist and I'm going to make a few more changes now. So what you can do as well is you can control the order in which tasks are completed. So you can use that using halt tasks. There are 2 types of halt tasks. So you can halt until the task is complete, or you can halt until the task and preceding tasks are complete. So I'll put 2 of these on. You can see these little, so a hand icon comes for a standard halt task, halt until task is complete, and halt, and a hand icon pointing upwards sort of illustrates that this task has to be completed, plus all of the preceding tasks also have to be completed. So let's save that now really quickly, and let's just show you this. Okay, so you can see the first change is that these tasks here are grayed out because this is halted. So if I now complete this task, these 2 tasks become visible and available to complete because this task is now halted. But this one is the halt until task and preceding is complete. So if I complete this one, these 2 still don't become available because we also have to complete the tasks that precede this task. That's the difference between the 2 options. So if I could complete this one and then I complete this one, now that becomes visible. These 2 final tasks become visible and I can action these. So that's the difference there with halt tasks. Now let's go over what's next. Conditional logic is a great one. Okay, so conditional logic allows you to show and hide tasks or controls within tasks based on values that are selected in your controls or entered into your controls. Now, it's quite common to drive conditional logic from drop-downs or multi-choice or one of those types of, drop-down multi-choice, sometimes short text, but mostly drop-downs, because drop-downs are fixed values and they're single select as well. So we've already got a drop-down here. So imagine we've got a customer type drop-down here. And let's just have two options to keep it simple. So let's say this one is enterprise and this one is small business. So we might want to display some additional information depending on the customer type. So I might want to know the small business name if small business is selected, and I might want to capture enterprise name. I know this doesn't really make sense, you wouldn't really do this, but I just want to illustrate the point. And then let's add a couple more tasks here, 2 tasks following task 2. See what, let's remove these halts because these are probably going to get in the way. Let's call this small business task. Let's call this enterprise task. Okay, so we have our customer type drop down here. This is what's going to drive the logic. So I've got to apply conditional logic. Conditional logic is on every task. You can apply conditional logic to every task, but you want to select the task where the control that's driving the logic is from, and then click this orangey yellow sort of conditional logic button. This pop-up will appear, and this top section allows you to define which tasks or controls are hidden by default. So we can say the small business task and the enterprise task and the small business name and enterprise name are going to be hidden by default. So when I say hidden by default, that means when the checklist is created rather, the initial state of these tasks and these 2 tasks and these 2 controls are going to be hidden from view. So then I want to add some new conditional rules. So you can click this green conditional add new condition button to do that, and you can have as many as you want. Now I can then say if, it's basically it follows the if then pattern. So I could say if customer type, so we select our control there, is, and I could say if it is small business, I want to show the small business name control, and I want to show the small business task. Now I'm going to put the reverse logic in because I want to be able to hide that in case the user sort of clicks small business but then changes it to enterprise. I want to sort of tidy that up. So you often have to do 2 roles to cover each scenario. So these roles are very sort of matter of fact, so you do have to sort of think about things like that when you're doing that, like cleaning up as well as sort of so showing and hiding you really have to think about. So we've got 4 roles now. 1 to cover, I've missed one here. There, okay. So 1 to cover small business and 1 to cover enterprise, 1 to show and 1 to hide. So now I can click save, and I'll save this template. You can see here, by the way, I forgot to mention, you can see these little sort of crossed out eye icons against small business task and enterprise task. You can see that's just to indicate that they're hidden by default. And with these, we don't show sort of that here, but if you click settings, it will show you hidden by default here on these 2 controls. So now let's create another version of this. Oops. Demo 5, I think we're on. I've kind of lost track. Okay, so you can see that we can't see the small business task, and we can't see the enterprise task, and also the customer type is here, but underneath where we added small business name or enterprise name, they're not visible either. So now if I change this to small business, you can see small business task appears over here, and small business name appears over here. And if I change this to enterprise, small business name and small business task go away, they hide, and enterprise name and enterprise task appear. So this is just a really good way to sort of make your processes dynamic. It's kind of logic branching in effect, really. So yeah, so if you have processes that, you might have a process that's similar, but instead of having like multiple templates that are really, really similar, you can use conditional logic to sort of make a single process dynamic. So, for example, if you've got an employee onboarding process, if you've got sort of an employee that's joining the IT department, you might need some extra tasks to set up their sysadmin account or something like that, or give them elevated IT privileges or something like that. So instead of having one employee onboarding process for everybody and then another employee onboarding process for IT only, or another employee onboarding process for human resources employee, you could just have one that just adapts. So that's the power of conditional logic for you there. So let's have a look what else we can cover here. So we've gone over most of the features, to be honest, but what I will show you is a couple of other small things. So you can control whether you want your comment section and tags and things like that to be displayed. So you do have some control over things like that. I haven't shown you, but tasks can actually be marked not applicable as well, and you can define whether you want that to be allowed. You can set some permissions on the checklists. I won't go over that too much because it's quite a large topic, but you can basically control sort of who can access. Like, you can basically say, I only want people who are actually assigned to the task to be able to view this checklist and stuff like that. The custom notifications I will show you because that's kind of linked with due dates and other events. So you can build up. This is kind of similar in a way. It works in a similar way to conditional logic. You can kind of build up rules to notify. So you can say you can select your tasks here. So I could say when these two tasks are completed, for example, I want to notify this person. Maybe those tasks are very, very important. So that will send an email or send a Slack message or however you've got your notifications configured to that person. But what is quite useful is the most common scenario for this is to build up more powerful due notifications. So I mentioned before that when a task becomes overdue, we have an inbuilt notification system that messages the assignees. So that's great, but you might want that to be a bit more powerful. So you can build up notifications that cover is overdue by or is due in. So I could say when task 1 is due in, say 6 hours, I want to notify that person. Or you can actually type in fixed email address if you want to sort of email an external person not registered as within your team. And the great thing about this is you can chain these together. So you can say, I've got one for 6 hours there, and then I can say if it's still overdue, i.e. it's still not completed and it's got a due date and within 3 hours, I want to send another email. So this is great because if you've got a really important process, you can customize your notifications to really hammer home, this needs to be completed. So it's a really great way of sort of really keeping on top of really important tasks. I won't save that change because you can't really sort of demonstrate it without sort of waiting for the emails to come through. So I'll move on to something else now. So I think we've kind of covered most of the templates and the checklists themselves. I'll talk about some other parts of the system. We do have a tasks dashboard here where you can see sort of all open tasks or all tasks, my open, so tasks that are assigned to me, for example. These are across all checklists. We do have tagging, which I didn't really cover actually, but tagging, you can tag entire checklists, which is the most common scenario, or individual tasks. So if I go into this checklist here and I open up this menu, I can actually tag this with, say, onboarding. We've already got an existing tag there. That's now tagged with onboarding. If I go back here, you can see this is now tagged with onboarding. I can use the tags filter up here to only view or only view checklists that are tagged with onboarding. So tagging is a way of sort of grouping and filtering data by any means you need. So this is good if sort of you want to sort of group checklists for based on a project or a region or whatever you need basically. And within the tagging menu, each individual tag you create becomes an individual branch. So I can go into the onboarding here, and I've got quick access. So rather than using the tagging thing up here, I can just quickly go in here, and this will show me as well all checklists, tasks, or templates. So you can tag individual tasks and templates as well, but the most common scenario is to tag an entire checklist. So tagging is great. Templates, this is where you sort of manage your templates. So we have the concept of folders. We've got an unfiled folder, so any new template that's created will automatically go into unfiled, and then you can file it into a specific folder if you want. And you can create folders here. And you can see we've got important processes folder and an onboarding folder. So if I wanted to put our demo template into the onboarding, I could click this little, each template has its own card, and within the card it shows sort of the most recent runs, and it's got some tabs, and you can click on change folder, and then you can select which folder you want to put it into. So now our demo template is within the onboarding folder. And the other useful part about this section is that you can click on version history, and you can view all the changes made to this template. So I can go back to version 1. You remember version 1 we hadn't put the assignments. You can see the assignments aren't here, the due dates aren't here, the halt, well, we removed the halts, but the conditional logic, the extra tasks around customer type aren't here. So you can actually you can use this section to kind of, as kind of the source control. So what I didn't make clear actually is when you open this, and if I click save changes, this then becomes the latest version. So this will overwrite the current version. So you can roll back basically. So this is really good for basically continuous improvement. So you can experiment, you can make changes to your templates, safe in the knowledge that you can go back and revert those changes if you really need to. The other thing to mention in here is we control access to your templates at a folder level. So all of the templates within this folder inherit the permissions applied to this folder. So if you hover over, you can edit this folder. And this folder says demo admin has edit permissions. All other users can just view these templates. I could say deny. So if I put deny, all the other users won't even be able to see this folder or the templates within that folder. But it's currently set to view. So all other users will be able to view the folder, and they'll be able to open and look at the templates, but they won't be able to actually modify them. So that's quite useful. Some other useful things here is you can duplicate templates. You can generate run links. So run links are quite cool because they allow you to sort of generate a run link, which basically you can create a new version of the checklist from that run link, from that URL. So if I copy that and put, let's use, it's got my subdomain, so I'll just keep it as app. So when I type that URL in here, it allows me to create the checklist just by putting that URL in. So you can see it's got this template selected. I can say created from run link, and then it's asking me for the manager prompt. You can actually pre-fill these in as well. So this is quite useful because you can kind of have this externally in some sort of, maybe if you got it in a help desk article or something, and you can allow people to self-serve, so to create checklists without having to be logged in and stuff like that using run links. So that's quite a cool, powerful feature. We've got a scheduling feature which allows you to create schedules to automatically create your checklists based on a defined schedule. We've got pre-built templates, so you can use these to sort of help you get started. So we've got an employee onboarding template which you can have a look through, and you can actually import this into your library and then you can edit it. We've got one showing how the embed control works. So you can see here Google Maps embedded, or an Airtable, or Trello board embedded, Google Sheets. So you can see how you can embed things within your checklist so that you don't have to leave CheckFlow. You can kind of have this all in one part. We've got analytics, which is kind of like a high level overview, sort of raw stats of sort of how many tasks have been completed, when they were completed, were they overdue, that sort of stuff. We've got a knowledge base, which allows you to build up sort of folders, your own folder structure, and then add your own like articles to each folder, and you can also permission these and stuff. So I can say, you know, only the human resources group can actually edit the contents of this folder, and then each article can be edited here. And you know, I can put some stuff in here, and so the idea behind this is to sort of have a knowledge store within CheckFlow alongside your processes. So these might be like supporting documents that you might want in CheckFlow. We've got a tools section here which allows you to do things like create multiple checklists. So we do have customers that need to create, like bulk create lots and lots of checklists. So the way you can do that is you can select your template here, and then you can put the checklist name and put any parameter values in, and it will create multiple checklists for you. So you could put sort of 100 checks. So we do have customers that maybe like at the beginning of the day they create 100 checklists. So that's just a way to kind of cover that sort of scenario. In your user settings here, you can control sort of what sort of notifications you receive. You can set up two-factor authentication. You can set your date and time formats. You can view what groups you're part of, and you can view sort of any activity and stuff that you've been doing. In team management, I'm logged in as an administrator here. You can control sort of your team name. You can upload a logo which appears up here. You can generate an API key. You can add a Slack app. There's information on how to enable single sign-on. You can actually have a subdomain. So you could have your name.checkflow.io, and you could actually enable branding, which is for shared checklists, which I haven't gone over yet actually. I kind of forgot about that, so I'll show you that in a minute. And then you can actually add users here and sort of control their access here. So I can disable users here, and I can set their status. So I can say whether they're an administrator, a member, or a guest. Guest users are actually free and they're unlimited. You can have as many guest users as you want. Guest users actually have a kind of a restricted version of CheckFlow. They have a kind of a dashboard where they can only see tasks that they're assigned to. Groups, you can create new groups and you can add users to those groups, and then billing is just your billing information that you can update. Now I'll show you share checklists quickly. So let's remove these filters. So share checklists are pretty cool because they're used really so that you can collaborate with people outside of your organization. So if I expand this show menu and I click this, I toggle the share/embed control, this creates a shared URL. Now I can copy this and I can open up a new tab and put this here. So I can use that shared URL and I can access this anonymously. Now this checklist here. Now you can see that it does look slightly different because there are less tasks. So the way shared checklist works is it only makes visible tasks that are unassigned publicly. The reason being is we don't want to expose user information, but it also gives you flexibility. It means that you could have a single process that that you can capture information from an external source. So let's say you're a real estate agent, or if I go back to the classic employee onboarding example again, if you've got a process whereby you need to capture information from the employee before they start, you could have a load of tasks that are assigned to, say, the HR department to set up certain things for the employee. You could have some tasks set to your IT department, and then you could have a few tasks at the beginning that are blank, and then you share your checklist. Then the employee goes in and fills in those tasks, complete those tasks, and it might be things like upload your proof of identity, what is your social security number, what is your address, what's your full name, what's your date of birth, that sort of stuff. So they could do that in a checklist, and this could be branded with your logo and all this sort of stuff here. And the person could still come in and they could still sort of fill these in, and you can see that conditional logic still works, comments still work, although you can't @mention somebody. The @mentioning isn't applicable because and there's no assignments and due dates, because we don't want to. We're not making public users information. This is more just to capture information. So the user can complete these. You can see that when the user enters these details in here or completes the task, it's flagged as anonymous user because the user's not having to log into the system. They're accessing this anonymously. So this is really just a really powerful way of using CheckFlow with third parties. And also you can add passwords on here. So I could auto-generate a password. Copy that. Then if I try and access this again, just refresh the page, I need to actually put that valid password in to sort of get access. So if there is secure information, in there, you can protect that with passwords. You could also expire access after a certain date, or expire access once the checklist is completed. Things like that. You can see here this is also dynamically updated. So we do have real-time synchronization in CheckFlow. So if I complete a task here, then you can see this little toast icon come up here. You can see this automatically the change gets applied over here. So this is quite good, because if two people are working on the same checklist, that our real-time tech sort of just synchronizes that and applies that change in real time within sort of a second or so. So I think I've covered the majority of the features. I haven't got into things in real depth, and there are some things that I haven't really talked about, i.e. permissions, and maybe some of the other things like tags and customization and stuff. But that is a real high level overview of CheckFlow. Do have a look at our documentation, our YouTube channel for more information. If you do need any help at any point, we do have this little chat widget down the bottom right here, which you can contact us on, or you can email us at support@checkflow.io. We're always here to help. So I do recommend just opening a demo account and getting started and playing about with it and seeing what it can do for you, because I think it can be quite powerful, and it can sort of save you a lot of time just by the automation features it has. Thanks a lot for sticking with it. It's been a long video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Thank you.